In the mighty Persian Empire, a grand kingdom stretching across 127 provinces, the Jewish people lived as foreigners, exiled far from their homeland. At the heart of this empire, in the capital of Susa, ruled the powerful King Xerxes, known for his lavish lifestyle and temperamental nature. Among the Jewish exiles was a young, wise, and beautiful woman named Esther, who, though orphaned at a young age, had been lovingly raised by her cousin Mordecai. Mordecai had taught Esther the importance of faith, wisdom, and humility, values that would soon play a crucial role in her life and the fate of her people. One year, King Xerxes decided to throw a grand feast for all the nobles, princes, and officials of his vast empire, showcasing his wealth and the glory of his reign for a staggering 180 days. After this lengthy celebration, he declared a special 7-day feast in Susa for the people of his city. In the heart of the Persian Empire, Queen Vashti was known for her beauty and strength. Yet, she was not merely a figurehead. She commanded respect and carried herself with dignity. On the 7th day of King Xerxes' grand feast, the king's spirits were high from wine, and he commanded his queen, Vashti, to appear before him and his guests to display her beauty. He summoned her to display her beauty before the nobles. Vashti, valuing her privacy and self-respect, proud and dignified, choosing not to be objectified, refused the king's summons, angering Xerxes and humiliating him before his guests. Her decision, though courageous, defied royal tradition, shaking the foundation of the court. Upon the advice of his counselors, Xerxes removed Vashti from her position, declaring that her defiance would set a bad example for other women in the empire. Vashti's dismissal set in motion events that would change the fate of the Jewish people. Determined to find a new queen, Xerxes ordered a search for the most beautiful young women in the empire. They were brought to the palace under the care of Haggai, the king's eunuch, who supervised the royal harem. Among these women was Esther, whose Hebrew name was Hadassah. In the shadow of the empire, Esther was an orphan raised by her cousin Mordecai. As a humble Jewish girl, she grew up cherishing her heritage and values. When she was chosen as a candidate to become queen, her life changed overnight. She entered the palace, where she underwent a year-long beauty regimen that included treatments of myrrh, oils, and perfumes. The palace's splendor contrasted with her humble roots, yet Esther's humility and grace caught the attention of all who saw her. Mordecai, ever mindful of the dangers his people faced, instructed Esther to keep her Jewish heritage a secret. She obeyed and remained true to her identity each day, navigating the unfamiliar world of the palace with grace and humility. After a full year of beauty treatments, each woman was presented to the king. When Esther's turn came, her beauty, intelligence, and quiet strength won over everyone who met her. But more importantly, she captured the heart of King Xerxes himself. She stood out not just because of her beauty but for her gentleness and poise. Unlike the other women who sought to impress, Esther requested nothing extra to adorn herself, earning the king's admiration. Xerxes was captivated by her humility and grace, sensing something uniquely genuine in her. As he placed the royal crown upon her head, making her queen, his fondness for her grew. Esther's quiet strength and inner beauty created a bond between them, setting the stage for the crucial role she would play, though she kept her identity and faith hidden, just as Mordecai had advised. Not long after Esther's ascension, Mordecai's loyalty to the king was unwavering. As he sat by the palace gate, he overheard two guards, Bigthan and Teresh, plotting to assassinate King Xerxes. Realizing the gravity of their plan, Mordecai acted swiftly, reporting the conspiracy to Esther, who informed the king in Mordecai's name. Xerxes' life was saved, and the two conspirators were swiftly executed. The incident was recorded in the royal chronicles, giving credit to Mordecai for his loyalty. Though Mordecai received no reward, his act of integrity laid a foundation for the coming events. Unbeknownst to him, this moment would later become pivotal in his destiny and that of his people. In time, Xerxes appointed a new and powerful official, Haman the Agagite, a man with ambitions as great as his arrogance. Xerxes elevated Haman to a position of immense authority, commanding that all officials at the king's gate bow down in respect to him. Haman descends from a lineage historically opposed to the Jewish people. Mordecai's refused to bow before him, due to his steadfastness in his faith, recognizing only the authority of his God. Haman's pride turned to fury, and he vowed not only to destroy Mordecai but to annihilate all the Jewish people across Persia. This stirred deep hatred in Haman, who saw this as an affront not only to himself but to his status and lineage. His resentment grew, manipulating King Xerxes. Haman painted the Jews as a rebellious group, subtly twisting facts to make his case, launching a dark plot that would soon be challenged. To carry out his malicious plan, Haman cast the pur or lot to determine the most auspicious day for his massacre, and it fell on the 13th day of the 12th month, Adar. Haman approached King Xerxes, accusing the Jewish people of being disobedient to Persian customs and laws. He convinced Xerxes that allowing them to live posed a threat, offering to pay 10,000 talents of silver to the royal treasury in exchange for the king's permission to eliminate them. Xerxes, trusting his advisor and unaware of Esther's heritage, handed Haman his royal signet ring, empowering him to seal a decree ordering the destruction of the Jews. Word of the decree spread swiftly, filling the Jewish community with dread. Mourning spread across the provinces as the Jews wept, fasted, and prayed. Mordecai tore his garments and wore sackcloth and ashes as a public sign of his grief. When news of his sorrow reached Esther, she sent Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs, to learn what troubled her cousin. Mordecai sent word back, informing her of Haman's deadly scheme and urging her to plead with the king on behalf of her people. When Mordecai informed Esther of Haman's plot, she faced a heart-wrenching choice. Approaching the king without being summoned was punishable by death, unless the king extended his golden scepter, and she risked her own life by doing so. But Mordecai's response to her fear was resolute.
Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone will escape. If you remain silent, relief and deliverance will come from another place, but you and your family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?
Strengthened by these words, Esther resolved to act. She instructed Mordecai to gather all the Jews in Susa to fast and pray for 3 days, and she would do the same. The weight of her people's survival bore heavily on her, and after days of fasting and prayer, Esther resolved to take action. She gathered her courage, sending word to Mordecai, "If I perish, I perish." This moment marked a turning point for Esther, as she fully embraced her role as queen and protector of her people. Driven by faith and duty, Esther hesitated, knowing that anyone who approached the king uninvited risked death. On the 3rd day, Esther donned her royal robes and courageously entered the inner court of the palace, awaiting the king's response. To her relief, Xerxes extended his golden scepter, sparing her life and inviting her to make her request. Rather than revealing her petition outright, Esther invited the king and Haman to a banquet she had prepared, where she would eventually share her request. At the banquet, the king again asked Esther what she desired. Esther approached the king with grace, earning his favor once again. Instead of revealing Haman's plot outright, once more she delayed, but invited Xerxes and Haman to a banquet, building suspense and leaving Haman oblivious to her true intentions. Haman left the first banquet elated, yet his mood soured when he saw Mordecai at the gate, refusing to bow. Furious, Haman's wife and friends advised him to erect a gallows, 50 cubits high, and request Mordecai's execution the next morning. Delighted, Haman had the gallows constructed. That night, however, the king could not sleep. He ordered the royal chronicles to be read to him, and there, he learned of Mordecai's role in uncovering the assassination plot. Realizing that Mordecai had never been rewarded, Xerxes sought to rectify this. The next morning, just as Haman entered to request Mordecai's death, He walks through the royal halls, full of arrogance, not knowing that his world is about to collapse. He is unaware that Xerxes has already decided to honor Mordecai, the man he despises. Haman, the once powerful and confident advisor to the king, struts through the palace as if the world is still his to command. Yet there is a storm brewing around him. A twist of fate begins to unfold when Xerxes, with a serious tone, demands that Haman be brought before him. The king's voice echoes throughout the palace as he asks a question that will forever alter Haman's fate. Xerxes addresses Haman directly.
What should be done for the man the king delights to honor?
Haman, imagining the king was referring to him, begins to answer with great excitement, his voice rising with confidence.
For the man whom the king delights to honor,
Haman suggests,
let royal robes be brought, the kind the king himself has worn, and a horse on which the king has ridden, with a crown placed upon his head. Let the man be led through the city on horseback, with a royal official calling out, this is what is done for the man the king delights to honor.
Haman smiles at the thought of how the king might honor him, oblivious to the fate that is about to befall him.
Hurry, take the robes and the horse, and do just as you have suggested for Mordecai the Jew, who sits at the king's gate. Do not neglect anything you have recommended.
Xerxes commands. Haman's joy swiftly evaporates. His face goes pale as the king's words sink in. He had planned Mordecai's destruction, but instead, he finds himself humiliated in a manner he never imagined. The very man he had plotted against is now the one to receive the king's favor. In disbelief, Haman is forced to carry out the king's command, leading Mordecai through the streets of the city in public humiliation. The streets of Susa are bustling with activity, but today the people are not just shopping or talking. They are witnessing an extraordinary procession. Haman, the proud Persian noble, leading Mordecai, the Jew, on horseback through the streets. The crowd watches in stunned silence as the royal herald proclaims,
this is what is done for the man the king delights to honor.
Haman, his face red with shame and frustration, grits his teeth, desperately trying to maintain his composure as he parades Mordecai through the city, unable to escape the eyes of the people. The streets of Susa become a stage for a moment of bitter irony. Haman, who once sought to bring Mordecai low, is now forced to lead him in a public procession. The people of Susa stare in disbelief, witnessing the reversal of fortunes. With every step, Haman's humiliation grows, while Mordecai rides with dignity, his heart perhaps unaware of the full weight of the situation but nevertheless holding his head high. Haman returns to his home, utterly defeated. The once proud man, now stripped of his dignity, enters his house. His wife and friends look at him with concern as they see his broken spirit. Haman slumps down in his chair, defeated, recounting the entire humiliating ordeal to his wife and friends. Haman, now thoroughly crushed, tells his wife and friends about the king's decision, and how Mordecai was honored in his place. His voice shakes with a mix of frustration and defeat. If Mordecai is of Jewish descent, his wife warns, you will not overcome him. You are doomed to fall. Her words echo ominously in the room, and Haman knows deep down that his fate is sealed. That evening, he attended Esther's second banquet in a state of despair. During the banquet, Esther observed every movement and expression, carefully timing her plea at last. When the king asked Esther what she desired, her heart raced as she finally spoke up. She revealed her identity as a Jew and exposed Haman's plot. Spare my life and the lives of my people, for we have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. Shocked, Xerxes demanded to know who would dare do such a thing. Esther replied, an adversary and enemy, this vile Haman. The king stormed out in fury, and Haman, now terrified, threw himself before Esther, begging for mercy. When the king returned, he saw Haman on the couch near Esther and misconstrued his actions as an assault on the queen. The king's fury ignited, and Haman's pleas fell on deaf ears. Guards seized Haman, and one of the king's eunuchs, Harbona, informed the king of the gallows Haman had built for Mordecai. Without hesitation, Xerxes ordered that Haman be hanged on his own gallows. As the events unfolded, Haman's arrogance turned to terror. The words of his wife Zeresh and his friends echoed in his mind. "If Mordecai is of Jewish descent, you will not prevail against him." Haman's schemes unraveled, and his desperation grew as he realized the gravity of his fate. The gallows, towering above the city, had been built with his own vindictive hands for Mordecai, but now awaited him instead. His downfall served as a powerful lesson in the perils of pride and hatred. That same day, Xerxes granted Haman's estate to Esther, and Mordecai was brought into the king's service, rising to a position of great authority. Yet, despite Haman's death, the decree he had sealed remained irrevocable. Esther once again risked her life, pleading with Xerxes to save her people. The king authorized Mordecai to issue a new decree, allowing the Jews to defend themselves against any who would harm them. The Jews armed themselves, and on the 13th day of Adar, their enemies were defeated. When Mordecai's new edict allowed the Jews to defend themselves, a wave of courage and resilience spread among them. They united, gathering to strategize and strengthen their resolve. Families prepared to protect their loved ones, and communities stood in solidarity. When the day of battle arrived, they fought valiantly, not seeking vengeance but defending their right to live. The Jewish people's courage and unity inspired respect throughout the kingdom, and their survival became a testament to their faith and endurance. The Jewish people celebrated their deliverance with joy, feasting, and giving gifts to one another, commemorating these events with an annual festival called Purim. Esther's courage and faith had saved her people, and Mordecai's wisdom and loyalty were honored throughout Persia, for he worked tirelessly for the welfare of his people and upheld justice with dignity and strength. Through these events, the legacy of Esther, the hidden queen who rose to deliver her people, was forever etched in the history of the Jewish people. Purim became more than a celebration. It was a reminder of the resilience of their faith and the power of unity. The Jewish people vowed to remember these events for generations, ensuring that the story of their salvation would live on. If you have watched this video this far, it means you enjoyed the story. May I humbly appeal to you to like and subscribe to this channel if you are yet to do so, as this will make you be among the first to receive our next story from the Bible. You may also leave your comments below and share this story with your friend and loved ones. When you do this, you are helping to grow the channel and also contributing to the spread of the good news in the scripture. I will see you in our next video. Shalom.